charge your vehicle with green energy and the cheapest way possible.
This is, I think, the key benefit or the key genius of Zappi.
We have a very sort of blinkered attention, and what we do it well.
There were issues in the early days, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to be selling it anymore. Okay, this interview has been a long time coming, and today we're going to talk about my 3 favourite chargers, and we're really comparing the Zappi charger to the Fronius and the Tesla charger, and I've brought in Zach Gibson from Myenergi, or the company that makes the Zappi charger. Thanks for coming in, Zach.
Brent, thank you for the introduction, Mike.
Yeah. Hey, look, let's just start with a little bit of an overview. We're going to go through a lot of disadvantages and I guess why I use these products sometimes and sometimes why I use a Zappi. And we're going to talk about a problem that I think that we've got with the Zappi as well at the end. But just give us a little bit of a background. Who is Myenergi? Like, we all know who Tesla is. A lot of people know who Fronius is. Who is Myenergi?
Yeah, of course. Myenergi is a UK manufacturing company based out of Grimsby that started off with about six people back in 2016.
Yep.
And we've increased quite rapidly from all the way up to 450 worldwide now, expanding into the likes of Ireland and all the way out to Australia here as well now in the last 2 years. So product-wise, we're already in the country, but as a company,
that you've just come to Australia as well.
We're here now as well.
Yeah, okay, and that was 2 years ago you came here, but only 2016 you said it started?
Correct, yeah. So
that's massive acceleration, right? So massive growth.
Yeah, just this is huge, obviously the huge uptake in the industry, and just having the right people in the right place at the right time, and we've obviously sort of taken that wave and applied ourselves.
Yeah, sure. And Myenergi's first product wasn't the Zappi charger, right?
Yeah, no, that's correct. Yeah. It was what's called the Eddy, so uses the same sort of technology features in terms of the key focus is scavenging solar and redirecting it.
Yeah, okay, sure. And that was doing it to heat your hot water.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the primary purpose for it.
Okay, so the main point of all these products is firstly to charge your EV. That's the basic thing. But the reason that I'm a little bit more interested in these as the owner of a solar business, someone who's focused on solar, is we want to do that as cheaply as possible, and we want to do that with surplus solar. Can you just really basically explain what are we talking about with surplus solar?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So I'll bring this little guy across to help demonstrate the point.
Sure.
So from the Zappi side of things, we put what's called a CT clamp around your incomer to your property.
Current transformer. Yeah.
Current transformer.
Sure.
And it reads a signal of how much current and which direction it's going in.
Yep.
So when we're talking about excess solar, it identifies that you're producing more than what you're using, and it can see what's going to the grid. And it's that excess, that figure there, that we're looking at harnessing and redirecting into your vehicle to take advantage and to charge your vehicle with green energy and the cheapest way possible.
Yep, sure. Okay, so for example, at 9 o'clock in the morning, you've gone out to work, you've turned off the kitchen appliances or whatever it is. All of a sudden now you've got 3 kilowatts of excess solar feeding back to the grid. It'll say, well, take that 3 kilowatts and send it to charge your car, assuming your car's at home. And that'll ramp up and ramp down and follow the curve over the production.
Correct, right. And it's another advantage of having the CTs, which can go directly wired into the Zappi via a signal wire, and it has a response time of 1 to 2 seconds. So it's very accurate.
Right, and this is, I think, the key benefit or the key genius of Zappi. So I've done a video, I think you've watched it already, a video where I compare these two products. And one of the big things that I picked out is that Fronius was a lot better than how Tesla does it with using that solar surplus. Tesla doesn't do it on its own. It needs a third-party app called Charge HQ to talk to your Tesla car and work out when you're sending more power back to the grid. Fronius does it by talking with the internet, so it's a little bit delayed. This is quite slow. This is more delayed. Every 30 seconds it will update how much solar you're sending back to the grid. Where you guys even faster than 30 seconds, right? It's making those changes to
Yeah, so it's so it's tracking at 1 to 2 seconds
1 to 2 seconds
with the information from the CT.
Right, which would be very satisfying to know that you're wasting nothing, right?
Correct.
You're wasting no excess solar power at all, and it's just tracking that curve perfectly.
Correct.
It makes a lot of sense too, just the different way that these do that, connecting to the internet basically versus direct on site. One advantage of that, I think, is when I was testing these, it makes total sense. If I lose an internet connection, well, this does no longer follow your solar surplus. So you don't have that issue at all with Zappi, right?
No, we don't. It can be standalone. The internet's a bonus.
Yeah,
if you're looking to monitor things remotely, it's not relying on the internet.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so now let's say that my my carport is separate from my solar, my carport's separate from the house, or there's just a massive cable run, and I don't want to run this cable, underground to get it to, to get it between where my main switch is and where my EV charger is. You got a solution for that?
We do actually. So we've got a really cool little device called a Harvey, which is a remote CT transmitter.
Yep.
Which works over RF radio frequency, which has a reasonable range of up to 30 odd meters.
Yep.
And you're able to put that around your mains. The other cool thing about it is actually self-powers itself from the current being produced through the current transformer.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have another little power source. So you just have it there. Your CT clip on. All done.
Yeah, let's explain that, because I think for the homeowner or whatever, they won't understand what a CT is. But this is just basically a big donut that we can actually clip around a wire. So the mains from the power that's going from your house, you can put the cable through that hole, and it is measuring it with induction. So similar to, I like to say, people know what an induction cooktop is. It's not directly transferring; it's doing it sort of through magnetism or induction.
Correct.
So it's picking up how much electricity is flowing through that wire without actually touching the wire, right?
Correct.
So
the clamp itself is effectively the second conductor.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And we could go deep into the weeds with that, but I guess it's a very commonly used, very, very accurate way of measuring things. So there's no issues about accuracy there at all. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about other differences between these products. So here's my Watt Pilot, Fronius Watt Pilot. This is a Watt Pilot Go that I can plug in. It's kind of handy. But anyway, it doesn't come with the big cable on it. So you have to bring your own cable. You probably take it off and throw it in the boot, because you might use it at a shopping centre. That's the only option that you get with the Fronius Watt Pilot. You buy your own cable. The Tesla wall connector, this comes tethered, what we call, with a cable that you don't take the cable with you. So if you need one shopping, you bring it with you. But also, if you're installing this, at your workplace and you get vandals around there or something like that, you can damage that cable and you've got to replace it, right? What do you guys do?
Looking at both of yours, we've got, the first one you can see that we've got sitting here is our tethered version. Which is obviously mimicking what you've got with the Tesla. For us, that's primarily, we target that at the residential market. And then for more of a commercial setting, we've also got the untethered version option. So effectively, we've covered both.
Best of both worlds. We don't have an option here. You have an option there. Kind of a nice little feature.
Correct. All in single and three phase. So 7 kilowatt and 22 kilowatt options as well.
That's right. So if you've got a three-phase home, same with all of these products. You can do single or three-phase with both of them. Okay, now let's talk about the screen on it. It's a feature that I like. I had a big dummy spit when Fronius dropped their screen on their inverter, but I think pretty much any inverter that's half decent has dropped the screen now. You guys have got a screen, which I'm pretty happy about. By the way, I use the Zappi at my office, so outside my front door. The Zappi charger is there, and I share it with one of my staff who has a BYD. I've got a Tesla. I just walk out the door to go and get lunch, and I go, oh, look at the screen, it stopped charging. Oh, nice, I'll go and plug my car in. It's just so simple. Or it's nighttime, I don't want to charge it with solar surplus now, I'm just going to fast charge it. I press a button, it's just 1 second of the day that I don't have to look at my iPhone to do a setting. So kind of a fairly nice feature on that too. Now that we said that you don't have to connect this to the internet, but we can now, right? A fairly new addition?
Yes. So in the version 2, we had it was an extra that could be added in separately with what we have is called a hub, which was the internet gateway.
Yep.
Whereas with the latest 2.1, that's been built into it.
Yep.
Which then gives you the app capability, which with that you're able to do your scheduling, you're able to view your charge history, and you can see what's happening live.
Yeah,
in it as well as having a nice little fun feature. It's like got quite a GUI interface now as well, where you can select your priority in relation to what device is getting priority.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a funny addition. You've got free Wi-Fi. Inverters were banging on about free Wi-Fi back in 2015, but you guys, welcome to the party. You know, you've got
this is true.
You've got Wi-Fi built into it now. So
yes. So it's got, but it's the Wi-Fi, or it can be also hardwired as well.
Yeah.
And it's an important point as well with the hub as well, which was the external feature that is backwards compatible as well. So if you are quite a distance from where the internet is in terms of connecting wirelessly, you can actually add that in, and then it communicates over RF, which gives you additional range.
Yeah, that's nice. So yeah, if you've got an issue with an install, then no worries, there's a solution basically. So,
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Now, speaking of Wi-Fi, let's talk about the app. So what I find interesting is Yorick is one of my sales consultants. He's got a couple of Tesla Powerwalls, a solar system, and a couple of EVs at home. So he's got apps coming out of his ears, right? You know which one he uses? Myenergi. So he uses his Zappi app he just finds it just such a nice interface. And so what he's done, which I thought was a pretty cool setup, similar to what you're talking about, he's used that Harvey and the CTs to measure what his Tesla Powerwall is producing, and then all of that information is there in the one place, really simple for him to see. So kind of cool that just another app, but he prefers it to his other apps, so which is kind of cool.
That's always nice to hear, to get that feedback, because it is a nice GUI interface.
Yeah,
and you're not just limited to like monitoring just the house in terms of seeing that solar excess. You are, like what you've just said. It can be your battery, it can be your hot water, it can be your solar as well.
Sure. Yeah. No. Excellent. So one question from Yorick, though, that he had is that we're getting now time of use charges where we get charged effectively more between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. where everyone's using power. And a lot of Queenslanders are getting shifted over to that now. So he comes home, let's say at 2 o'clock, he plugs his car in, is charging with solar, but then he doesn't want to keep on charging that till 9 o'clock. So he wants then the charger to come back on at 9 o'clock, so that it will charge for him to go back to work the next day. Is that possible with Zappi?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 different charging functions, modes.
Yeah.
Fast, Eco, and Eco Plus. The fast won't achieve what you're looking to do there, because that's just to sort of get you as quick as you can to full capacity, which is not what we're looking for. You're looking for more of a scheduling style of charging, which you can be achieved through the Eco and Eco Plus mode, where you can set your boosts.
Okay.
So it will be monitoring and taking the excess solar up until the point of when it starts to taper away, and that will be when your increased tariffs kick in. And obviously once the charger is not seeing that there's green energy, it will stop itself from charging, and you can schedule it to start charging after the high tariffs at an elevated rate.
Right, so it can use all the solar till the sun goes down, and then it'll stop using it. But then even without you adjusting it, it's a presetting, it'll turn on at 9 o'clock again.
And you can tell exactly. You can tell it exactly.
So that's great. That's a pretty cool feature. Another thing he was telling me about, and maybe you can explain this more. What if he plugs his car in during the day, comes home at lunchtime because he had a really early day, and he wants to charge up the Tesla first, but then any extra power he wants to go to the car because the priority for him is the Tesla.
Yeah, absolutely. In the deeper settings, there's a way of telling it to not to avoid draining the battery, to not pull energy from it, and you can tell it to also avoid charging it as well if you wanted to give the vehicle priority. So there's a couple of settings there that you can sort of pick in which order you like the vehicle and the Tesla wall to receive their energy.
Yeah, okay. And Yorick was saying that he really likes that versatility of the Zappi, where he's got it fully set up. Here I've just got it connected to my solar, and it's pretty simple. We just charge it. But if you want to get really into the weeds and and have it running and humming really smoothly with your solar system and your battery.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we've covered a lot of advantages. Now I want to cover some points that, there's obviously I sell all three products, right? So there's advantages for these products or disadvantages to the Zappi too. And so I guess one thing I would say as a customer, I would think everyone knows Tesla. They haven't been around for that long in the scheme of things, right? But everyone knows Tesla, and it's a really well-known product. You've probably got faith that it's going to be a well-built product, right? You just look at it, and I think it is anyway, just by looking at it. Fronius, look, I don't love this, but these guys have been around for 80 or 90 years or something ridiculous like that, right? And they've got thousands and thousands of employees. So a massive, well-established company that have got a huge reputation behind them of making welders. And you guys, relatively new to the comparatively, right?
Comparatively, absolutely. So still quite a young company. And as based off the obviously the employment figures that we mentioned earlier, definitely increasing at a rapid pace, and being quite young and dynamic and innovative.
Yep.
And also being very customer and support focused, and also focusing primarily on two main products.
Yeah.
So we've got our Zappi and we've got the Eddy. So we have a very sort of blinkered attention. And what we do it well.
Yeah, sure. And it's not just some guy has designed this product and then sent it off to China to get manufactured. It literally is getting built.
Exactly. We're keeping it all in-house, UK based, UK designed, UK put together, engineered.
Yeah. So that comparative niche little product isn't necessarily always a bad thing, right? And new companies start up and do good things like Tesla, for example, right? Okay, now, so another thing I guess is, so just to be totally upfront, is the first Zappi that I got when I bought my Tesla a couple of years ago, it failed, had a problem with the connection. Yorik's first one failed. And I know if people in the industry, a lot of them know Finn Peacock. I believe I meant to talk to him today about this actually, but his had two failed. His first two failed, and now I think he's onto his third one. There were issues in the early days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the early days, there was obviously version 1, a number of things still being ironed out, supply chain issues, and also being it was introduced into the country and being distributed by a reseller with that. So we didn't have the local support at the time, and so there was the sort of the back and forth.
Yeah.
But those have been identified, and the continuing innovation has been ironed out over the last 2 generations.
Yep.
Along with obviously entering into the market here, having our own base now set up in Melbourne, local tech support, where we're really sort of helping all our resellers and installers out there move forward smoothly. Yeah.
It is a bit of a shame, I'll be honest, because I was a little bit spooked, when I had all these, first a problem, but then getting onto a third party and then it taking a while and missing emails, and it wasn't, a well-oiled machine back when with our few problems. And I was talking to a guy in the industry, James Taylor from Taylor Energy, telling him the 3 chargers we're using. He's like, Zappi, really? Because unfortunately I think there's been a little bit of mud thrown on in the industry saying, well, Finn Peacock goes out there and says he's had 2. And sometimes I think Sparkies don't give it a second chance, right? So we stuck with it. We've installed quite a few of them for our customers. No problems with mine the second time around. No problem with Yorik's. I think it's a really good product, and it's got its advantages. And I think that probably that confidence that I've got is it's an English company manufactured in England, and then you guys have set up shop here, which is sort of showing you're serious. So yeah. Okay, now here's a big one I've got for you. We were talking about this earlier, is that I know a guy in Brisbane called Chris Cathcart, really intelligent guy that just loves solar and EV chargers, right? And so he's done a lot of testing of, I believe, all of these products plus more, and a lot of testing of solar as well. What his finding is that the Zappi installed in his garage compared to, I think, any other EV charger he's used, on many days will derate when it gets hot. So what that means, I guess, is if he's charging at 11 kilowatts, because he can charge at 11 kilowatts, it's got that much surplus solar, then the charger goes well, I'm getting a little bit too hot, even though it's inside his garage, and is ramping down maybe to 6 kilowatts or 7 kilowatts or whatever. Mm-hmm. Have you had that issue, come across this issue before?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this one up, actually. So to explain it a bit, it's a thermal cutoff. It's a protective feature of the internal smarts of the charger,
sure.
Effectively safeguarding the longevity of the product for the consumer. And at this point, they're obviously reasonably tight tolerances because there is quite a bit going on inside itself, and it is the brains of the Zappi, the charging, the Myenergi ecosystem that is working in your home versus other examples that we spoke about in terms of where they're actually sending and receiving their information isn't actually inside the charger itself. Yeah. So this is part of what needs to be implemented in order to safeguard a smart charger that has all these features. And at this point in time, that is what the engineers have identified as the tolerance that's required in order to keep that technology safe. But that's not to say, look, they're working away behind the scenes. Obviously, the innovation is ongoing. It's not static in terms of developing the technology to a point in order to be able to increase that robust level in terms of increasing the height of that tolerance. Is definitely being worked on.
Or whether it be a form of internal or external cooling or whatever it might be.
Correct.
Probably not. I mean, in some ways it sounds really drastic, but I guess it'd be more drastic if they didn't restrict it, right?
Exactly.
And as you're talking about, like Fronius is different. It doesn't need. It's not you processing the current that's going in and out of your house within this little box. It's doing it on the cloud. The disadvantage we've got there is that we've got slower response times. This version of the Tesla charger, the one we've got currently, is not doing that. It's doing that in the car and then going to the cloud, which is why we've got even slower response time. So I guess there's pros and cons, right? And I would think I'd rather your Zappi charger not burn out because it's overheating. So I guess that's the that's the protective measures that it's taking, and I guess that's the good with the bad and the smooth with the rough or whatever you're calling it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So fair enough. Okay, after that interview with Zach, I decided to test out this overheating issue for myself. So I got my Zappi charger off the wall in the office and I put it down into my warehouse and just on the board and started testing overheating and seeing when it was derating, running it independent of any solar surplus. And I found, even on a 28-degree day, after a while of charging, this would derate. But more was the concern is when I took the lid off just after it was charging, or while it was charging, I found these contactors here running extremely hot. Now, what's curious about that, this is a contactor or phase contactor, so all of your 22 or 11 kilowatts will run through that. But this is just an earth or ground fault contactor. No power runs through that at all, and I confirmed that. These contactors were running at around about 60 degrees or so. I checked it with my thermal camera, and they were basically, almost too hot to touch. And that heats up the whole engine bay, and the inverter then will derate. So Zappi gave me a new EV charger, the updated model. It had exactly the same problem. They've also given me a firmware update that I haven't run yet, but that is supposed to derate it at a lesser rate, from 11 down to 10 kilowatts, so it doesn't have to go all the way back to 5 kilowatts all of a sudden in one big jump. But think about it, this is a 22 kilowatt charger, and it was also derating when it was charging a BYD at 7 kilowatts single phase. So I think they've got a few issues here. Now, the other thing I want you to look at this charger is look at the size of it. It's a massive engine bay, which normally I like that for cooling, but look at this, all this cabling, 6mm cabling, CTs wrapped around it, DIN mount, this is the sort of thing that I can pick up at the electrical wholesaler, DIN mount contactors, really basic stuff. If it was me and my engineering buddy from school got together and made this, we'd be really proud. But check this out. This is how you make a real EV charger. It's all printed circuit board. All of your your 32 amps or your 22 kilowatts is running through bus bars on the printed circuit board. Here are your contactors, not your DIN mount massive contactors. They're separated because of heat, so the heat dissipates, but they're not heating up anywhere near this. Just a much nicer, no CTs, no cables running around there. Everything is all integrated. This is what you expect from a company that's done power electronics for the last 75 or 80 years. And I guess this is what we should expect from a startup. So in my opinion, the Zappi has got a long way to go. I am interested to see what they are going to change. They believe it's something to do with pulse PWM signal, the pulse width modulation signal that is holding these contactors in. I've got no idea about that, or potentially the firmware update will help it a little, but I think you can see they have got a long way to go to be anything in the league of a Fronius, or for that matter, a Tesla wall-connected charger, which is very similar to the Fronius kind of build. Anyway, I do appreciate Zach for coming in recently, and thank you for watching this video.